Welcome to the Punter, the show that likes to keep you up to date with all the sports betting action across the sporting calendar. And we're going to be talking Premier League football very shortly indeed. I'm pleased to say that joining me in the studio, Gordon Watson Flash is with me, and alongside Gordon, we've got Simon Hopper of Easy Odds. A very good evening to you. Flash, first of all, just reflect briefly on the first weekend and indeed the one midweek fixture in the Premier League, because it's been a really good start to the season, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I mean, it's been absolute carnage. I mean, if you went for the Queen's Park Rangers, which I think 99 out of 100 people did last weekend, and but Fulham, obviously, they were well backed, so we was pleased with that. Newcastle beating Tottenham, we was pleased with that. But the main one was obviously Chelsea in midweek, because Reading were well overpriced at 12s. They went odds on during the game, and 2-7 about Chelsea. You could back them back at 7-2. So I think that's where the value lies at the moment. Overpriced at the start, go with them, and then come back during the game. Yeah,
there's been certainly the ability to be able to trade out in some of the big matches already. Simon, welcome to the show from Easy Odds. When punters look at your odds checking service, I mean, again, the trading aspect can be key when there's some big prices floating around.
Absolutely, the in-play angle is absolutely massive nowadays. I mean, especially during Wigan-Chelsea. I mean, I was hoping to actually back Wigan and then lay off later in the match, but that actually turned out to be a bit of a disaster, didn't it? But yeah, no, absolutely, the in-play angle is absolutely massive. And as Flash was saying, Chelsea-Reading, there was some fantastic value to be had during the match there.
Hopefully, there will be some value to be had over the course of this weekend's action. We're going to kick off our previews, Flash, with Swansea against West Ham. For me, this looks like a home win. One or two pundits writing off Swansea ahead of the season. They lost Brendan Rodgers, a couple of key players as well. But boy, they were impressive.
Yeah, I was one of them. I was one of them, and then Michu steps up. But again, let's not get carried away. Let's not have an overreaction because of the first game. They played against a Queen's Park Rangers side that, on paper, should have given them a much sterner test. But the defenders went walkabout. Well, I mean, Mark Hughes obviously was not happy. He's gone and got 3 different defenders this week. So I think that Swansea maybe been a little bit flattered. And there's a massive contrast in style in this game. You've got Swansea who want to get it down, be patient, pass the ball, and you've got West Ham that will try and overpower them. And I think that this is not a home win. I would lay Swansea and take West Ham in a draw.
Simon, have the bookmakers overreacted, do you think?
I don't think so, no. I think most of our partners are 11-10 Swansea. I think you get a bit of 23-20, but I think that's about right. I mean, they were very solid at home last year, only lost 4 at the Liberty. Well, having said that, West Ham had the best away record in the Championship last year. Absolutely brilliant. I think it was 12 wins from 23 away games. Absolutely unbelievable. I think this is just going to be low scoring, guys, to be honest. Swansea conceded less than a goal a game at home last year. West Ham only conceded 22 and 23 on the road. I actually like the look of a 0-0, 10-1 with Ladbrokes. I think that's a really good price. Also, both teams not to score, 21-20 at Bet Victor. That's the other way I'll be going. But yeah, I just think there won't be many goals in this.
Let's welcome Nigel Seeley, the Bet Butler, to the show. Nigel, talk us through the markets for this one.
Yeah, good evening, guys. I mean, I think all these games this weekend are very, very tricky encounters. You've got some very interesting matchups. You've got teams who have over sort of delivered on the first week of the season, and they've been sort of priced up on the fact that the season's 6 games in. I mean, this is a very difficult one to start with. Totally agree with Simon. You've got Swansea at home, who've been fantastic. I mean, everybody remembers the victory against Liverpool last season, the victory against Arsenal, and West Ham were good away from home. So it's a very difficult one for punters to call up. Swansea are the marginal favourites. They're 11-10 here. On first glance, you might have a look at that and say that could be value. I mean, but you know what? I'm not quite sure whether it is if you delve look into the stats a bit for West Ham 14-5. They're always popular, whoever they play. The West Ham fans always like to put their money down. They're very, very well supported betting side. But I think the draw at 12-5 really, really sticks out here. I think West Ham will start their campaign not looking to lose early doors and get points. I think they'll make it very hard away from home. At home, we know last season they didn't really deliver. They've already started off with a win against Aston Villa. So I like the draw here at 12-5. I think that could be a decent bet. Totally agree with Simon on the under 2.5 goals. But on first glance, I think Swansea look the value. But when you look closely and closely into it, the draw makes more and more appeal at 12-5.
We can, of course, certainly get a little bit too excited when it comes to those opening day 5-0 successes, and you know, one match form isn't really worth too much. West Ham were curious, weren't they, last season, Flash, because they were awful at home, they were a lot better away. I get the feeling that it might be different this time around because the fans won't give them so much stick at home, will they?
Yeah, the big thing is they've got that win and a clean sheet under their belt straight away. When they go away from home now, they've got some bigger, more robust players in. So if they do get themselves in front or they need to scramble, they will be able to do it. I mean, set pieces, they're not going to let any goals in against Swansea at set pieces. So I expect West Ham to defend deep and then maybe try and hit on the break because they have got players that can score away from home. But again, I'm the draw, but I'd lay Swansea.
The general consensus is that we're not going to see too many goals, but we'll have a look at the first goal scorer market anyway. You can, of course, back no goal scorer. Butler.
Yeah, I mean, the goal scoring market here is very interesting when you've got Miku who scored 2 goals against QPR, a very leaky QPR defence. He won't get the same freeway. Very similar there. I think he's like Podremiak. When he started off, he was OK for 4 or 5 games. When people sort of got sussed him out, he was well marked, and I think he'll be a marked man tomorrow afternoon. The favourite in this market is Danny Graham. Big, strong kind of lad. Will he play? That's the interesting thing. He's 5.5 to 1 there. Miku 7 to 1, all with 2 goals. For West Ham, interesting team news. You're not quite sure. They've got an abundance of players. You've got Vazto, who's not on this list. You've got other guys. You've got Nolan as well, who scored at the weekend. But Carlton Cole heads their betting at 17 to 2. Bulldog got 9 to 1. I agree with Simon again on the no goal score. I think 10 to 1 is a decent bet. And I keep telling you, if you fancy 0-0, always go for the no goal score. For the old goal, you get paid out. So 10 to 1 makes it look like this could be a different little bet there. Start of the season, always goals with a premium. Last week there was quite high, but usually statistically in August they're very, very low. So go for low goals, go for no goal scorer. But if you do fancy a bet, Miku at 7 to 1, the man on form, and Carlton Cole for West Ham heading their market at 17 to 2.
We're predicting not too many goals in that particular fixture. I wonder if the same can be said when it comes to our predictions for Manchester United's home match against Fulham, because Sir Alex Ferguson, Flash, said that it was their failure in front of goal that stopped them from getting something at Goodison Park. How are you viewing this one?
I'm just hoping that senile dementia's not setting in, because for me, they had very few chances.
Didn't have clear-cut chances, did they?
No, they didn't. And for me, it was all about the speed of pass. I didn't think they were quick enough. They got closed down too easy. They didn't have a game B. I think he accommodated players, and that was the thing that gave Everton the edge.
When it comes to this match, lots of pundits and indeed fans will be talking about Robin van Persie potentially starting. Do you see him starting? Do you see him being a factor in the betting on this one, Simon?
Well, I think Sir Alex Ferguson said that Robin van Persie is quite likely to start. Yeah, I think he'll probably start up front with Wayne Rooney, who probably needs to buck his ideas up, really, doesn't he? He was quite disappointing in the week, and he could find himself cast aside if he doesn't buck his ideas up quite soon. I think Man United 1-3 to beat Fulham. I mean, you'd say that's no more than a fair price, wouldn't you? I mean, Fulham are historically very, very poor away from home. Although obviously they did thrash Norwich 5-0 on the opening day. Although I do think Fulham's home and away form, it really is chalk and cheese over the last few years. So I won't be having a bet in this. I think United 1-3, they probably will win.
Yeah, 3's on or thereabouts. United. Butler, took us to the match prices here.
Yeah, as you say, 1-3, and there's not many punters out there putting their money behind Manchester United yet, and I expect them to drift. I think Manchester United, come kick-off time, will be a bigger price than 1-3. Fulham were fantastic, wasn't they, the weekend, 5-0 against Norwich. We know their away form is bad, but this is a different set of players. They're a good group, good manager, very young, and Dembele, I think, will be a revelation season. He's my star for this season. 10 to 1 Fulham. I mean, we've seen some big prices go up in running. We've seen Southampton obviously go up against Manchester City. We saw Reading take the lead. For a trading price, Fulham at 10 to 1 could make appeal. The draw 9 to 2, Manchester United 1 to 3. I think the best angle for the way they play this game is to back Fulham on the Asian handicap, receiving 1.5 goal start. As long as Manchester United don't win by more than 2 goals or 2 goals or more, you're in the money. But the stats scream Manchester United. The last 6 games, they've averaged 3 a game against Fulham, scoring 18 goals and only conceding 1. But I think it's a good time to play United. I think defensively they've got frailties. Rooney doesn't look at the races, and Fulham plus 1.5 goal would certainly be my strategy. Remember last year, Fulham only went down 1-0, and it was a debated penalty right at the end where they should have got, which everybody caused controversy. But I think this time around, on the Asian handicap, Fulham are a decent bet.
Yeah, look for the Asian handicap, plus 1.5 Fulham against Manchester United at Old Trafford. Tottenham versus West Brom, the next that we can take a look at. Tottenham, heavy favourites for this one. Flash, I didn't see the game against Newcastle last weekend at the Sports Direct. They were beaten. But now, of course, Emmanuel Adebayor has been signed by Andre Villas-Boas. I mean, that's a big plus for them, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And when you look at this game, you've got to make sure that you do delve into what actually went on in their games last week. I mean, West Brom could have been and should have been 3-0 down in the first half an hour prior to scoring the first goal against Liverpool. Then Liverpool down to 10 men. Centre half leader been sent off.
Bit of a false scoreline, maybe.
Yeah, Tottenham completely bossed Newcastle for about an hour. So Tottenham should have been in front. So I think that Tottenham at home to West Brom is a moral one. I've gone West Brom to go down, and just because they won 3-0 against 10-man Liverpool, who were toothless, I think that West Brom will struggle. Yeah,
I'm with you. I'm not going to change my opinion of West Brom just yet. Should we back Tottenham at odds on to beat West Brom, Simon?
I don't think so, actually. I think 8 to 15 Spurs is probably a little short in my book, actually. I think I know where Flash is coming from backing West Brom to go down. I actually think it's a little bit too short for me. I mean, you got to remember West Brom did finish 10th last season. It's a long way to fall 10th to 18th or 19th or 20th. I think they might have enough quality to stay up. I think if I was going to have a bet on this game, I'd be looking West Brom 6-1 actually. I think they had such a fantastic away record last season. They're still dangerous on the break. Tottenham could still be bedding in under Andre Villas-Boas, so I'd be looking at West Brom actually.
West Brom on one side of the house, Tottenham on the other. Butler, what are you going for?
I'm Tottenham all the way. I really am. I think they've got a great chance. On the odds on, I'll be taking 8-15 Tottenham rather than the 1-3 Manchester United all day long for me. I think the big thing for Tottenham is they've got Adebayor back. I mean, they've got a threat going forward rather than everything hinging on Defoe, and we know what an impact player he is. But 8-15, I think this will be the cornerstone of most bookmakers betting accumulators this weekend. I think people will put them in their trebles, their fourfolds. I think they'll probably be as popular, if not more popular, than the Manchester United because doubts about Manchester United. West Brom 6-1, totally agree with Flash. I think they were flattered by the 3-0 last week. I think Tottenham played very, very well in stages against Newcastle. If they had Adebayor on the pitch, they may have even come back with 3 points. The draw 17-5. Statistically, Tottenham have a good record here. I mean, 2 of the last 3 matches they've played have been 1-0 wins, very narrow wins. I mean, they're not going to win this game by a lot of goals. AVB, we know what he likes to do. He was very sort of negative in his approach against Chelsea. Expect that sort of discipline at Tottenham here, defensively minded rather than the gun-ho effect we saw under Harry Redknapp. And I think Tottenham will win it. And if we're going to have a correct score, I think I'll look at Tottenham 1-0 at 7 or 8-1. I think that's a decent bet.
Emmanuel Adebayor, incidentally, last season, with Adebayor starting in the side for Spurs, Spurs won 63% of matches. When he didn't start, that dropped to 33. It's a huge difference. I think he could make the difference for Spurs this weekend. Let's move on to Aston Villa against Everton. I think 1 or 2 punters thought that Villa might pick up. They were awful last season. They did have a bit of the ball last weekend. They were against West Ham, but they were beaten. I mean, they're on the comeback trail here. They need to pick up pretty quickly, don't they?
They do, and the big thing they've got to do is start keeping clean sheets, because 3 years ago, everyone, week in, week out, they knew that Villa would be very tough, they wouldn't let any goals in, and they'd be able to score at the other end. Now, jury's out. For me, it's just got a draw wrote all over it, and that's not sitting on the fence. Everton don't score 2 and 3, and I think that 1-1, under 2.5, and the draw overall, I think both sides will probably be happy, because this is a tough game to call.
Simon, briefly, what do you think?
I completely agree with Flash, actually. The draw is absolutely screaming out at 12-5. I think it should be 11-5, possibly even 2-1. I mean, Villa draw a lot at home last season. Everton draw a lot away. 6 of the last 7 have been draws. It's got to be a draw, isn't it?
Yeah, we like the draw. Butler?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys again. I mean, the stat there, Simon said 6 of the last 7 games have been draws. They've been score draws as well. So 1-1, 2-2s have been familiar here. I just can't see either of these sides scoring 2 goals. That's the problem. I think you've got here a massive overreaction on the first day's results. Everton were fantastic, but they were brilliant against Manchester United. Played them off the park. Fellaini was absolutely superb. But if we saw the betting markets now, we'd all be back in Everton to qualify for Europe. We'd be back in Fellaini for the Player of the Year. You've got 2-1 here, around about 2-1. Aston Villa at home. This is just a massive, massive price. I think they're huge. Everton 6-4 away from home. I wouldn't back Everton at 6-4 away from home against anybody in the Premier League. I think it's very, very, very short at these early days. It's a huge overreaction. The draw 12-5. We all like the draw, but for me, laying Everton. And getting Aston Villa on the draw, maybe on the exchanges, you might have to go a little bigger than that. But I think we've got an overreaction here. If this was the first game of the season, we knew nothing about, only a week ago, Aston Villa will be marginal favourites. They've lost against West Ham. Everton are putting in a worldly performance. Also, there's doubts about Jelavic, who may not play. He's not fit, and also Disdain. So what Everton's first 11 is a very strong 11. Any injuries, they're in trouble. And if those 2 are out, Aston Villa and the draw represent great value.
Many thanks to the Butler for now. And one thing I will point out about backing the draw, never feel you are sitting on the fence with this one, because a lot of the time it is the biggest price. Well, many thanks to Gordon, Simon and the Butler for now. We've got plenty more to come on the Punter as we look at more of the key games over the weekend. Well done, Gary. Welcome to the Punter as we endeavour to give you all the best bets across the Premier League action this weekend. Lots to look forward to, hopefully lots of value around as well. Plenty of games, of course, coming up 3 p.m. This Saturday afternoon. Gordon Watson and Simon Hopper with me in the studio. Moving on to Norwich against Queen's Park Rangers. Obviously, we keep talking about this one-match form. We've had one match in the Premier League for the vast majority of games, and punters look at those games and think that's how the season's going to go on. As we've already explained, it's never as simple as that. But Norwich and QPR having both been spanked last weekend, how on earth do we get an angle on this one, Flash?
Well, I think you've got to give Queen's Park Rangers another chance. I mean, they will not. The personnel will not be the same. I think the ethics will not be the same, and I think they've had a jolt to understand that they cannot get through on being 70 or 80% fit. The defenders for me last week, it was under 10 schoolboy. right the way through, and that won't be the case. And Norwich don't have the same sort of firepower as Swansea. So I give QPR another go, and I think that if it wasn't for last week, there'd be a lot different price.
Flash quite willing to give Queen's Park Rangers another chance. Are you, Simon? How do you see it?
I'd say, Dan, I'm completely on the opposite side of the fence, actually. I think QPR, massively overrated. They lost 14 of their 19 away games last year. I mean, all the prices on QPR are just hearsay and reputation on the players that they've signed so far. Norwich were reasonable at home, won 7 of their 19, drawn 6, lost 6. I think 11-8 on Norwich, really, I actually think that's a pretty decent price. I know they're not the best team in the Premier League by far, probably will go down this year, but I just think QPR's price is all about the reputation of the players they've signed rather than any tangible form. So I'd actually look at Norwich at 11-8.
Queen's Park Rangers have signed some big-name players, but they could fail to gel. Butler, how do you see it?
I agree with Flash again, I'm afraid. I think QPR are a bet here. I've seen some price of 9-4 around. I think that's too big. I really do. I think, both teams have lost 5-0, but the Norwich team last week was abysmal. They could have lost 8-0. The QPR game, they had chances. Hoylett had chances. Was a tale of 2 goalkeepers. And also, it's an interesting stat here. QPR lost 4-0 last season at home to Bolton in the opening day season. They went the following game, went up to Everton and won 1-0. So I think they might bounce back. I just think Norwich are in for a real tough campaign this season. I think they're around about even money, 11-10, sort of favourites to go down, and I think they will go down this year. 11-8 at Norwich. I mean, I've been absolutely slated by my tips last week. I put QPR up as the bet of the week. Absolutely slated by everybody. It's 11-5 today. I'm going to stick with him with Flash. I've got to go with him. I don't think you can gauge how good or poor a team is on one game. I think you give them at least 3 or 4 games. We'll know how strong these two teams are. But at the moment, I think the starting 11 and the players on the bench, and I think QPR are in a different league to Norwich. 11-5 you can get QPR, and a draw there. It's 9-4 the draw, not 9-2. There's a misprint there, but I think that you've got to be with QPR. 11-5, bigger than 2-1. If this was the opening game of the season, you would have been 5-4, 6-4 QPR. Both of them on the back of a 5-0, and you get 11-5. So it's about who can get the best out of both teams, and I think Mark Hughes will motivate the players, and they're playing for places, whereas Norwich look to me a team who are going to struggle this year.
Interesting. Well, that must admit, it's a difficult one for me to get a handle on. I'd probably leave it alone. Let's move on to Sunderland-Reading. Quite like Sunderland here. Flash?
I don't think you can rule Reading out at all because Reading just keep going. I mean, I don't know any team in the last 4 or 5 years that have scored more goals between 70 and 90 minutes. I'd say the best bet is probably a draw and both teams to score. Obviously, we've got Saha, Fletcher's joined. Don't know if he'll play tomorrow. Reading will score goals home and away this year because they know no other way, and they're a great counter-attacking team. So for me, it just smells of a draw for both teams to score.
It's interesting you mentioned the sort of late goals of Reading. I think Lafondra scored 3 goals in the 90th minute in his last 6 appearances. Just one other point running to you, Flash. Playing midweek at Stamford Bridge, is that any factor?
I think it'd be massive. I think it would just blow a few more cobwebs away, get them up to speed. But the big thing is they've gone to Stamford Bridge and scored 2 goals where not many teams do go and do it. And if it wasn't for
so more keeper, of a plus than a minus.
Massive,
maybe.
Because you've got the keeper 3-1 in. Torres was 2 yards offside, and a bit of naivety shown by McDermott by letting the keeper go up, because not only have the people who backed Reading with 1.5 goals in the handicap, at the end of the season, that goal might even come down to whether they stay up or not.
Yeah, you don't need to go gung-ho too early in the season, that's for certain. And yeah, for all of us who did back plus 1.5, yeah, we did our money. Thanks for that, Brian. Anyway, Simon, what do you like in this game?
Yeah, I agree with Flash, actually. I think Reading a decent value here. I'd probably just lay Sunderland. I think they're at the 9-10 mark at the moment. I think I'd just lay Sunderland and cover the draw as well. But Reading, absolutely fantastic away from home last year. They actually won comfortably at the top 2. Southampton and West Ham, they won comfortably at both of those grounds, which is really impressive. I was really impressed with them in the week at Stamford Bridge. They were really unlucky not to get a result. You look at their wingers like Joby McAnuff and Hal Robson-Kanu, they're really, really dangerous on the break. Sunderland, I think they might struggle this year, actually. I think they only won 1 of the last 8 at the back end of last season. They haven't spent much money. I'd be a bit concerned they haven't got much up front. So honestly, I think Reading a decent value here. I'd be taking on Sunderland and covering the draw as well.
The boys like Reading. I like Sunderland in this one. Butler, what do you like?
I'm totally against the boys in this one. I'm going for Sunderland. I think they'll have a good season. I really do. I think they've got a good manager. More probably arguably one of the top 5 managers in the country. I think they've got good home support. I think they're buying good players. I mean, they're buying quality players. I mean, they're buying Adam Johnson. It looks like he's going to go there as well. I think they've got goals in them. I think the midfield with McLean expect a great season. I do agree with them. There's goals in the game, but I think they're going to be more home goals than away goals. That's why 5-6. I think of a decent bet here. Totally disagree with Simon. I'm going for Sunderland here quite strongly. 12-5 the draw. Reading 19-5. I think the travelling. They've got to go from London all the way up to Sunderland to play the game. I know they're Premier League footballers, but it takes it out of them. It's new to Reading. Places like Sunderland, it's going to be a first home game of the season. It's going to be a very intimidating place. I think Sunderland will finish in the top 8 this season. I really, really do. I would even wouldn't be surprised if they finish above Newcastle. That's how strong I think they'll have a good season. I think they've got some good players, good manager, and I think that their home base will get them through. And the only thing I am worried about is Stephen Fletcher for £12 million or whatever it was. I'm not too sure about that. But in Sessegnon, McLean, one thing about it, both of these sides play with wingers, which means should be in for an entertaining game, and I expect goals. So I agree with Fletcher on that. But I think Sunderland will win it. I think they'll probably win it by about 3-1.
Yeah, me and Butler like Sunderland. The boys here like Reading's bound to be a draw, isn't it? It's as simple as that. Southampton-Wigan is the next that we can take a look at here. Flash, we talked about Southampton, of course, last week, and they did marvellously well at Manchester City, but fell to that sucker punch late on. Can they beat Wigan? I thought Wigan a little bit unlucky against Wigan. Chelsea. It's a difficult one for me. How do you say it?
It's very difficult, and Southampton will score. Definitely, and I see both teams scoring a little bit like Sunderland and Reading. But I just see that there's later on in the game that Southampton will keep pushing forward, and then they play into Wigan's hands. And I think Wigan are an absolute massive price, over 2-1. And if I had to go with it, I would probably lay Southampton and take Wigan and the draw. But I expect Wigan to win, and I expect both teams to score.
Yeah, I was amazed that some of the reports about Chelsea's win over Wigan last weekend suggested it was comfortable for Chelsea, because it wasn't. How do you see this one?
Yeah, it's far from comfortable, was it? No, definitely not. I see both teams scoring as well. I agree with Flash. I think Wigan's system, the sort of the three at the back and the wing backs pushing on, really allows itself for an open game. And Southampton don't hold back at home either. What I like doing with Wigan at the moment, I just keep backing both of the wing backs to score at any time. Boyce and Bottigior, both around 12-1 most games. Boyce actually scored 3 in his last 4 at the back end of last season. So I'd take a couple of speculative punts on Boyce and Bottigior to score rather than anything else.
Do you have a look at that? Interesting, because I think Boyce hadn't scored for about 3 years prior to that goal-scoring run late last season.
There's something in the water out there. I don't know what Martinez did.
And the other one I'd like to say is Morgan Schneiderlin will probably play as like a front screen in front of the back four of Southampton. Yeah. And Jordi Gomez is one of the best runners into the box late. And one of the big things about Morgan Schneiderlin is defensive cover is not good. I expect maybe Jordi Gomez to score at some time. Have
a look at those correct scores. What about the match odds? Butler?
You're seeing some very, very strange odds in this game again, and this is all to do with the first week. I mean, Southampton went to this Manchester Stadium and played a group of game, but they lost. They lost 3-2. They scored 2 goals. They probably will stay up. They've got enough about them to stay up. But this is a big test for them. First game, expectation is high. This is where they have to deliver. 11-10, Southampton. Some bookies have got even money, these guys. I think it's crazy. I really do. Wigan, towards the end of the season, were beating everybody. Went to Arsenal, done a number. They were beating everybody. They didn't play well for the first 15 minutes. The last 75 minutes, they played well. They give Chelsea a proper game. 13-5 Wigan is absolutely ridiculous. What a great bet. This is my bet of the weekend. Lay Southampton 11-10. If you can get shorter, do it. The draw 12-5. I wouldn't rule out the draw, but I think Wigan here are being absolutely underrated massively by bookmakers. And everybody, this price here is purely and simply on a 30-minute mid-half performance against Manchester City, where they scored a couple of goals. They're in for a big test. Expectation levels are now through the roof. These teams, when they come up first game, they pull a shot because there's no expectation. Now everyone expects them to beat Wigan. Nothing's on Wigan. Wigan 13-5 is the bet.
Wigan 13-5, the bet. I think we all like Wigan to win at Southampton. Different ways you can get involved. Of course, you can lay Southampton, as the Butler was explaining. The live game on Saturday, Chelsea against Newcastle at Stamford Bridge. We were fairly impressed with Newcastle, I think, or at least I was. Chelsea, we've had a bit of a downer on. Can we take a flyer with Newcastle here? They won there last season, of course.
I think you can go blind with Newcastle because Newcastle will be 6-1. They've got goals. I think they easily match up. And these two sides will probably be the opposite of a 6-pointer, a relegation 6-pointer. I think this is like one where Newcastle can stamp their authority and maybe take a little dent into Chelsea's top 4 hopes. But again, if Newcastle 6-1, they take the lead, or it's 0-0 half time, they're going to come into like 9-2, maybe even 7-2. So there's plenty of trade in there. Overpriced Newcastle at 6s.
Yeah, do you think that Alan Pardew is going to go to Stamford Bridge with a view to win this game?
Yes.
Because they're confident, aren't they?
Yeah, they're a good side. I mean, you have a look at it, and the big thing for Chelsea, I think the penny dropped with them when he put on Oscar and Sturridge on Wednesday night against Reading. If he doesn't go and he goes with lack of width, Newcastle will exploit them.
Be interested to see how Newcastle line up. They've been lining up with a forward 3 occasionally. I think Alan Pardew will fancy his chances. I quite like Newcastle at a big price, Simon.
Yeah, I think Newcastle are the bet of the weekend, to be honest. I think they're definitely the best value. They were 13-2 earlier in the week with Bet Victor. They've now come into 6-1 along with everyone else. But I just think that's an absolutely huge price on Newcastle. I mean, they finished above Chelsea last year. They were 5th, Chelsea were 6th. That's a pretty big sample size, 38 Premier League games. They finished ahead of them. They obviously won here last year. Only the top 3 won more away games to Newcastle last year. I just think Chelsea are being overestimated as well. They haven't beaten anything so far, Wigan and Reading. So I really think 6-1 Newcastle is a great price.
We like Newcastle here, Butler.
I can't be excited about Newcastle, like you boys. I know you like your big prices, 6-1. I really don't. I really can't. I think maybe in running, watch the game, see how Newcastle set up, then maybe have a bet. Before the game, I couldn't do it. I think Chelsea have got the capabilities to overrun them in midfield. I think they're strong, Newcastle, but the talent of Hazard could break through that rear guard. I think that last season, yeah, but one team spent so much more money in the enhanced club, and the other side hasn't really spent anything at all. So I think Chelsea 8-15 is short. I agree with that. Totally agree with that. I can't make a case for Newcastle 11-2. Sorry, boys, but I think the draw at 3-1, I could certainly make a case for that. You saw Cisse scoring 2 wonder goals last year and winning 2-0, and that was towards the end of the season where Chelsea had chances of going for the Champions League final. Then they knew they couldn't win the league. It was nothing really in it for them. You know, they're going for the full place, but I think it was just before the Champions League final. So don't really look into that result too much for me. I think the draw is the best option here at 3-1. I fancy Chelsea to do. I think they flattered really in their first 2 matches. They haven't played much yet. But I don't think Newcastle are that great shakes either. I think that result last week against Tottenham are, for the long periods of time, a much better side. And I think the best they can hope for is a draw at 3s.
Let's have a look at the first goal scorer market. Let's get some picks from you boys. If we, on this side of the house anyway, looking for Newcastle to win, do we see a Newcastle first goal scorer? How do you see that market?
Yeah, I mean, I quite like the likes of Caballé, Gutierrez, especially if Chelsea are narrow. I think you look to the wider boys like a Benata or a Gutierrez. But I mean, this is how good Newcastle are and how much threat they have. We could have Demba Ba, Cisse, Caballé, Gutierrez, Benata, and I've probably done someone a disservice by not even putting them in.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because Demba Ba scored so many goals, and then Papier Cisse rocked up. He scored lots of goals. If you had to have a tenner on a first goal scorer, who would you look at?
I'd be looking at Ben Arthur, actually. He scored 7 in his last 21 now for Newcastle, and he was on penalty duty last weekend when Bar and Cisse were on the pitch, which I thought was really interesting. Interesting point to note. Absolutely on fire, Ben Arthur. Was really good at the back end of last season. I'd be looking at him.
Butler, what about the first player to score market?
Yeah, I mean, talking about penalties, Frank Lampard has scored 2 in 2, hasn't he? He scored the opening goal scorer. He's a 7-1 shot. I think Frank Lampard, again, is 7-1. Always a threat from free kicks or penalties. Torres, 9-2, is 3-1 in week. He scored the goal, but he didn't score the first goal. That's the question one. I've got to be on the Chelsea guys. I've got to go for Torres at 92. I expect a big season from him. I think he'll finally deliver it. And with the balls from Hazard, an 8-1 shot, the supply is going to be a number 1 there. There's no Drogba on the bench. I fancy Torres to do really, really well, and I'm on Torres at 9-2. But I have said that probably about 20 times in the last season and done my money.
Torres at 9-2 to get the first goal. Hazard probably about 9-4 to win a penalty. We shall see over the course of this weekend, and that was the Punter's look at the Saturday Premier League action. Welcome to the Punter as we take a look at the Sunday Premier League action. Top flight fixtures, of course, in the UK, and there's some fascinating games on Sunday. Pleased to say that Gordon Watson and Sam Hopper with me in the studio. Flash, first of all, Stoke versus Arsenal. This is a notoriously bad ground for Arsene Wenger. Arsenal rarely perform well there. Stoke usually get the 3 points. Is it going to be normal service, or can Arsenal do something that they rarely do?
I'm not 100% on it, but I'd want to be with Arsenal. I mean, last week, again, it was typical Arsenal, created, they looked good, just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And I think apart from set pieces, Stoke won't cause Arsenal any problems, and Arsenal will be too sharp and too clever for them. So I'm going to stick my neck on the line and go with Arsenal. And I say stick my neck on the line because Arsenal's record here is shocking.
It is, but the price over the years has inched out in Arsenal's
Yeah,
favour.
they're good value now.
And at some point, you've just got to back them, haven't you?
Yeah, you have. And I think that Arsenal, they could be sitting on Sunday evening, 4 points, no goals against, and everyone will say that the defensive frailties have gone.
Simon, all the stats say it's going to be Stoke. What do you think?
I think Stoke have been slightly overbet, actually, I've got to say. I mean, they opened 3-1 earlier in the week. I think they're into 13-5 now. I mean, I think I want a bit more than that against a good team like Arsenal. I think for me, I'll be looking at goals here. I mean, Arsenal's away games always see goals, 14 of the last 18 on the road. And I think 5 of the last 6 between the pair at the Britannia have gone overs as well. You can get 11-10, so I'd be looking at more of a high-scoring game.
Yeah, and Stoke have scored in 4 of the last 5 inside the opening 11 minutes, so Stoke do start strongly. Butler, how do you see this one?
Yeah, welcome to the Premier League, Mr. Giroud, Mr. Cazorla. Welcome to the Premier League at the Britannia. Stoke. You know, I know what's going to hit you here coming here. You couldn't think of 2 physical, stronger sides, Sunderland and Stoke. But Stoke 13-5. They've been backed all week. I mean, the fixture list come out last month. Price come out last Monday. 3-1 into 13-5, as Simon alluded to there. Arsenal 5-4. Now, is that too big for you? You know, this is the price. When would you get prices of odds against an likes of Arsenal going to places like Stoke? It's very rare you see these kind of prices. But this is the reason why that is because they're new players. There's no Robin van Persie. There's a new look about the side, and to go here so early, I'm not so sure. I think I'd rather take the price on Arsenal 6 or 8, 9, 10 games in the season. We saw how they started last season. Very, 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 very poorly. The likes of Jenkinson at the back, who I still don't rate at all against these guys. I think the draw at 12-5 again. I saw Stoke play Chelsea last season. They set out for a draw. And I disagree. I think it could be a low-scoring game. I just don't think the stats of last year are relevant for Arsenal this year. They started the campaign 0-0. When was the last time they did that at Arsenal? A long, long time ago. So what last year's form is different. It's a new side, and to go to Stoke is a tough place any time. And it's certainly a tough place. Second game of the season with 3 or 4 new signings and no Robin van Persie up front.
Yeah, the draw's interesting, isn't it? Because Stoke at home, they've drawn 4 of their last 7 at the Britannia. You could easily see it being another stalemate. But
yeah,
as you
but
say,
Dan,
maybe
you can't
goals.
go down that road because you know that Stoke had a European campaign last year.
True enough.
And they were totally out on their feet come the end of the season. They were depleted with injuries to main players and the spine. It's all about the start for me. If Stoke batter away for the first 25 minutes and don't get a goal, then lump on Arsenal, because Arsenal probably would have drifted as well. So I would say that Arsenal would be great value if they're level.
What about first goal scorer, Punter, Flash? Because Peter Crouch has done damage against Arsenal in the past. They are a physical side and they score lots from set pieces.
Yeah, it is. That is their only way through for me against this side, Arsenal. But I'll stick my neck out and say that Cazorla will get the goal that his last week's performance deserved. It goes like that sometimes in football, and for me, Cazorla, he looked a bit of class.
Yeah, no player in the Premier League over last weekend created as many goal-scoring opportunities as Santi Cazorla. Let's get the first player to score, mark it with a Butler.
Yeah, and it's headed by Lucas Podolski at 6-1 for Arsenal. He's their favourite, despite them being away from home. He's the favourite in the match. I think it's a difficult one to call because I don't fancy goals. I disagree with Simon there. He's saying there's goals. I think I want to be on the unders again here because I think it's not really great for me on the stats. Great, but not so far this season. Like, look at that, the last 4 there. You know, you're not going to be backing any of them to score. There's no Robin van Persie stats with him in the Arsenal side, and without the Arsenal side, difference. We've got a goal scorer. We haven't got a real natural goal scorer. Giroud 6-1. Tough place to go and get your first goal. I thought Crouch at 8-1, Walters at 9. Pace in Walters, strength of Walters as well, and Crouch is always a threat. If you're going to have a bet here, I think you could look at the centre half. I think you'll look at Robert Huth around about 25-33-1. For Marlon at Arsenal, 25-33-1, because you know the ball's going to be lumped in. You know with 10 or 15 minutes to go, there's going to be bodies all around, and that's going to be. I think these guys won't have the time on the ball. Cazorla won't have the time on the ball to create chances because Stoke won't allow it. So I think a big centre half could get you a goal. But I'm going to have a sneaky bet on no goal scorer again here. I'm going to go totally against the stats, totally against the trend, and around about 12-1. I'm going no goal scorer. When was the last time Arsenal started the campaign with 2 0-0 draws? Very unlikely, but I'm going to go against the norm here. I'm going to go for 0-0.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's ever happened. We'll have to check back on the stats. And that incidentally, Marlon was in goal-scoring form in pre-season for Arsenal. So if you fancy a gunner centre-back, you could do worse than the Belgian, who, of course, captains the side now. Let's move it on to the main game over the course of the weekend, which is Liverpool versus Manchester City. Simon, Manchester City did indeed win last weekend. They got beyond Southampton only just after I thought, a very complacent first half from City. It's as if they only had to turn up to win the game. Liverpool were pretty poor. They continued their 11-12 form into this campaign. What do you think at Anfield?
Well, I think Liverpool are a completely different kettle of fish at home against big clubs, aren't they? I think they only lost 1 at home to the top 7 last year, and that was Arsenal, and they were pretty unlucky to lose to Arsenal at Anfield last year. I think it's the underdog mentality of Merseyside, actually. I think Everton are very good when the big clubs come as well. They love the big game atmosphere up there, and I think the match was about fair here. I wouldn't get stuck into City. I think Liverpool are about right and the draw. I actually think Tevez is overpriced to score at 9-4. He'll be leading the line, obviously, with Aguero injured. Yeah,
9-4 to score at any time. Flash?
Team sheets, all about team sheets for me. Obviously, there's going to be no Daniel Agger, so that means that Carragher's going to play. Or if Carragher plays, then would you fancy Carragher to keep the likes of Tevez quiet? No chance. Not even in his heyday, and he's probably 6 or 7 years past that. So what I would say is, have a look. Liverpool, the only way that they're going to have a threat against Man City is if Andy Carroll plays. Andy Carroll's a slight hamstring injury. If it's Barini, forget it. Get on Man City. 11-8. Oh, it's massive.
Butler?
Yeah, I totally agree with Flash. You've got to wait to see the team. There's no Aguero. There's possible of Carroll not playing as well. Massive injury news, team news coming out of here. But we know Tevez will start the line, had the line up for Manchester City. On the match itself, though, I mean, Liverpool 2-1 at home. if you back Liverpool in these kinds of fixtures, as Simon said there, you make money. You always make money. Their record against Manchester City at home is phenomenal. I think you've got to go back 10 games the last time they lost 1 in 10 or something like that. In recent years, as Manchester City have got better and better and stronger, Liverpool always do a number on them. That crowd gets behind them on games like this. It's the first home game for the new manager. What I saw against Manchester City the other day on Sunday against Southampton, very leaky, very defensively. I know it's only one game, but will Liverpool have the players to capitalise on that? I'm not so sure. I think the draw 5-2 again represents the value here again. I think the strategy of today, tomorrow, so it's last week and this week and the following in the first 3 or 4 weeks is to go with the draw. There's nothing much between the teams. End of season form means very little. New season form means people don't want to lose. And I think the draw here at 5-2, Man City will look at this and say, if we can come back there with a draw and move on to the next game, it's a good result for us. So I'm all over the draw at 5-2. Brendan Rodgers will be happy with a draw. Liverpool will be happy with a draw. We get on track, new manager, and I like a draw at 5-2.
We've raised question marks about 1 or 2 of the strikers' fitness and form-wise. So if we're having a first goal scorer bet, I know, Simon, you like Tevez at any time, but Flash?
Tevez.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Anyone that from the City midfield, because we always talk about Tevez and Aguero and Balotelli. I mean, the City midfielders, should they chip in? Is there any value there with
Well,
Yaya?
there will be with Yaya, because Yaya goes forward for set pieces as well, and he's probably 2 or 3 inches, and especially if you've got Carragher. If Carragher's in instead of, obviously, instead of Aga, I mean, it's probably about 4 or 5 inches difference there. So, again, a bit like Fellaini and Carrick the other night. There'd be a mismatch.
Maybe a company or someone like that. Butler, how do you see it?
I mean, Tevez heads the betting here at 7-1, and I think that's a decent bet. I mean, you compare him to Luis Suarez, who was probably the most disappointing player, I thought, last week at the opening game of the fixtures. I thought he had so many chances. He had to net one. He didn't. He looks a man low on confidence. Uruguay in the Olympics, he was very, very poor. He didn't look really interested. Last week, he got himself in positions, didn't score, but this guy, Tevez, looked sharp. Dzeko, I like Dzeko. I think he'll do a job for some people. I think he's a great, great player. Doesn't get the games he does, and he scores every time he plays for Man City. If you see Dzeko on the team sheet, but it's all about having a bet. You know, when you're having a bet, you've got to know the players you want playing for you. Will he play Dzeko? Will he play Balotelli? One person we know will definitely start with Tevez, so that's why Tevez, I'm along with the boys here at 7-1. Barini, 9-1. What I've seen so far of him, I don't fancy him whatsoever. Gerrard looks a shadow of his former self at 10-1. And, you know, I can't see really many goals from his Liverpool lineup. But it's all about Man City. It's all about Tevez. 7-1. And he's going to play most of the game. 9-4. Simon's tipped to score anytime. Looks a decent wager.
Yeah, 9-4 to score at any time, 7-1 to get the first. That's Tevez. That's opening up to the Premier League. And when it comes to the outright betting, Simon's with us from Easy Odds. I mean, have you seen much in terms of market movement when it comes to the Premier League over the last week since those first games of the season?
We have actually, yeah. It's funny the sort of overreactions you can get after the first game week, isn't it? Man United have gone out to, I think they're 9-4 now, which I just think is just a crazy price on Man United. I mean, they were level on points with City last season. I mean, there's really not much between the sides. United have obviously strengthened with Robin van Persie and Kagawa. I think they'll get better this year. At City, they haven't strengthened. I mean, obviously, you'd expect them to get better naturally as players play together more. But I think at the odds, you've got to go with Man United at 9-4.
Yeah, Flash, nothing's changed for you?
No, because it's only one game in. I mean, they were 11-4. Then obviously Van Persie came in, and we tipped him up at 11-4. And I still believe that they probably won't get as big as that again until it's maybe half an hour to go in the last game of the season.
Butler, anything caught your eye in terms of price movements?
Well, the biggest mover for us percentage-wise is Chelsea. I think they're 11-2 now into 4-1. They've been the biggest movers, but that's 9-2 the best price you can get. But they haven't played anyone, have they? They played Wigan and they played Reading. I mean, it's all about what you do against the top sides, and that's why Manchester United at 9-4. I mean, when you look at that result against Everton, there'll be teams here on this list that will drop points at Goodison Park. Don't you worry about that. So I think it's a good marker. Man City 13-10. They've shortened, and they were struggling. I mean, we would expect them to score Southampton to score 2 goals against Manchester City. So 13-10 Manchester City head the market. Chelsea the biggest movers on percentage, 11-2 into 9-2. Arsenal haven't won yet, Liverpool haven't won yet, and Tottenham haven't won yet. They've drifted out slightly. But it's all about Manchester United, and I think Manchester United will get probably bigger as the season goes on. But around Christmas time is when they come good, and get on them now because they will be a lot shorter at some part of the season.
Butler, if Chelsea beat Newcastle, what price will they be?
I don't think there'll be much movement. It all depends on the results between Manchester City and Manchester United. If all three of them win like we expect to happen, Manchester City will be the biggest movers because they would have gone to Liverpool and won. So if Manchester City win, I think Manchester City will go even money to win the title. If Manchester United win, they won't change because they expect it to beat Fulham. Chelsea probably stay around about 4-1-ish. But if Man City beat Liverpool, that's when they will go even money. Maybe some firms might even go odds on because that's the toughest assignment of all these teams in action this weekend.
But many thanks, and that is our look at the Premier League here on the Punter. Welcome to the Punter as we keep you updated with all the sports betting action across the sporting calendar. Time to delve into the US Open tennis, which of course gets underway on Monday at Flushing Meadow. Fascinating tournament. It's the last Grand Slam of the season. We've got Gordon Watson and Simon Hopper with me in the studio. Flash, everybody talks about Andy Murray when it comes to the US Open. For years and years and years, this is always, apparently, according to the pundits, his best chance of winning a Grand Slam event. Is that true for you?
Well, I just don't see him winning it. But there again, it's on the back of winning the gold medal. So are we going to see a different Andy Murray? Already up against it. I mean, he's in the same part as Federer. So you think, so he's got the Indian sign over him. Will he beat him? But it's all about Djokovic for me. Djokovic, complete. We'll just see you in the final and we'll just send someone to play you because it's Djokovic all the way for me. And I know it's not original, but you've got the man is class. And on this surface, I don't see anyone beating him.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because the draw has opened up to a certain extent for Novak Djokovic because no Rafael Nadal, of course. So David Ferrer is fourth seed and Ferrer and Djokovic in the same half. I mean, you've got to say that Djokovic, Simon, looks like he's got a solo to the final. He's 2's on to make it to the final.
2's on isn't a bad price, is it, on Djokovic to make the final? I have to say, yeah, that looks reasonable value, to be honest. Yeah, I don't fancy Murray as well. I agree with Flash. I mean, he made the final in 2008, but since then he's been pretty poor at Flushing Meadows. Actually, I look out for Del Potro at 16-1. I know he's in Djokovic's quarter, but he's got his mate Nalbandian in the first match. I think he'll get through that. In 2009, in the final against Federer, he was absolutely unbelievable. He's very good on this surface. He did pretty well at the Olympics as well. So I think at 16, Del Potro might be an option.
And the big thing with Murray is that recently he's been knocked out very early on in the last two tournaments. So he's something like 15, 20-1 on. I'd lay him in the first 3 games because if he does go out, you're going to get paid handsomely.
Let's take a look at the outright odds, shall we? Nigel Seeley is with us. Butler, this is the US Open, men's singles.
Yeah, Del Potro won this competition 2 years ago, beat Federer in the final. He was plagued by injuries. He was 40-1 then. He's now 16-1 shot. Out of all the top players, he's the one who could break the stranglehold in the top 3. Disagree with you on Murray though. I think Murray's be happy that he plays Federer. He's much be happy with half of Federer rather than Djokovic. He's got a winning head-to-head record against Federer. He doesn't do it against him in the big Grand Slams. He wins it over 3 sets. I think you'll see a turning point of him after the Olympics. Because what happened at the Olympics, he actually felt that he was loved. For the first time, he actually got the adulation from the crowd. If he plays Federer at Wimbledon, it's always a 50-50 split. At the Olympic Games, he actually felt loved. And you could see it was like a weight off his shoulders. It was like a Grand Slam. And I think he'll kick on. I think you'll see a different Andy Murray. And at 4-1, I wouldn't rule him out, you know. I really do. I think he can beat Federer. I think his last recent records against him, and it was obviously he beat him in the Wimbledon final, but it was the nature of the win. He won so well at the Olympics. He absolutely battered him. It was over 3 sets. We all know that, and that produces shock results. Djokovic 13-8. He was pretty poor at the Olympics. He come back in an epic against Del Potro, got beat in a 17-15 thriller or something like that. Big scoring game. Following week, he goes to Cincinnati and he wins the tournament. That shows you how fitness-wise he's the fittest man on tour. 13-8. He's the one all the big hitters are going to come for. The big serious punters are going to come for Djokovic. Federer will be friendless at 5-2. I don't think he'll win another Grand Slam personally. I think he's won his Wimbledon title, and that'll be it. And I think he called it a day towards the end of next season. Murray 4-1. Del Potro at 12. He's the one who can break through without a doubt. Bronze medalist at Olympic Games, previous US Open, coming back from injury. When he gets that big left-hand serve going, he's a major threat. Wilfried Tsonga 45-1, a previous Australian Open finalist. Temperamental, not for me. Raonic, potentially 3 or 4 years to come, 75-1. And Thomas Berdych, not a chance. It's all about Djokovic for me. Don't rule out Murray. I expect you to see a good run from Andy Murray, semi-finals at least. But Djokovic, screw you boys, looks a certainty for the final at 2-1.
Butler, we always talk about the big 4 when it comes to tennis. Obviously now it's the big 3 because Nadal is out injured. And it scuppers each way punts, doesn't it? Is there any other angle rather than win only here? Because you mentioned the likes of Berdych in that, no chance. I mean, they've got to get to the final to get your money.
Certainly. I mean, bookies bet on who to win a quarter. They bet people to win certain quarters. But the dominance of the top 4 is so strong in there. David Ferrer is obviously in the quarter there. That will be a competitive market. But I mean, it's literally look at the matches. Try to find one like these runners. I mean, Raonic here at 75-1. These are players that have been fashionable in match bets. People have seen money for them in the second round, third round when they're around about 4-6. They don't win it. They've got no chance of winning it, but they will be profitable to bat these guys in match bets against better seeds. So look for those kind of guys. Djokovic will be 100-1, 50-1 on all the way till he gets to the semi-finals at least, or quarter-finals when he's 10 on, and then he'll be 5 on in the semis and he'll be 2 on in the final. So even at 13-8, if you do the maths of the probability of him winning it, it works out a lot shorter than 13 to 8. So if you backed him in every single round, 13 to 8 is probably a decent bet.
13 to 8, Djokovic to win the men's singles. What about the women's singles? I mean, a few years ago, I always thought if Serena Williams is interested, she'll win it. Sometimes she was, sometimes she wasn't. She seems to be interested at the moment. She won Wimbledon, she won the gold medal at the Olympics. When it comes to the women's singles in New York, Flash, who do you think?
I definitely don't think Serena. I don't want to take her on at the top there because there is probably 6, 7, 8. It's not like Djokovic probably only got 2 people who can actually beat him. In the women's, you can have 7 or 8 that would come along and do it. You've got Sharapova, Azarenka, Kvitova, Radwanska, even Lisicki. So for me, I'd be a layer of Serena and maybe have a look at Sharapova. I think she's around 7 or 8 to 1.
Phenomenal that Serena Williams is only seeded 4, but that's because she doesn't play that often. Azarenka is the top seed. Simon, any view on the women's?
I fancy Azarenka actually. I've backed Azarenka for every major so far. Obviously got paid out in the Australian Open. She was fantastic. She went well at Wimbledon as well and in the Olympics. She's got a really good game for Flushing Meadows, really fast around the court, fantastic ground strokes. Also, you want to look for someone slightly younger at the US Open because it's at the end of the season, stamina sapping. Trends suggest a slightly younger champion, so I'd be looking at Azarenka.
Let's get the women's singles prices. Butler.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point there, Simon, about the energy sapping, but Serena Williams missed half the season through injury, so she's coming really into it much fitter than anybody else. She was dominant at Wimbledon. She was absolutely fantastic in the Olympics, didn't drop a set. She's 21 to 20. That might look short, but there is no doubt about it on her game. She is certainly the woman to beat. Ricky Azarenka, she might have the game to run around the speed, but she hasn't got the game mentally. She can be 5-3 up and then lose the set. She'll be 5-1 up and lose the set. She gives away too many cheap points. Sharapova is the most mentally toughest competitor on the circuit. She's the only one who can match Serena Williams in that department, but she was blitzed by her again at the Olympic Games. Kvitova, 12 to 1. Wimbledon champion last season. Everyone expected this season to have a good campaign. She hasn't delivered. She doesn't look fit. Lina, 15 to 1. Again, not delivered this season. I like Kerber, 25 to 1. I think potentially she's a player who could do really well. But honestly, if Serena Williams is at the races, you will not get a better 21 to 20 shot all season. She will win this easily. But if there are any injuries, doubts about her, or any blip, then someone could capitalise. And if they are, Azarenka could be the girl. But I disagree. I think Serena Williams will win this easy.
Flash.
And the other thing you've got to say about Serena is she gets a little bit uptight when things are not going
for her.
She can throw
her toys out.
Yeah, especially at this place because it feels the pressure of the whole American flags, you know, the home of the brave, and she's their representative. And if it doesn't go her way, it's always someone else's fault. So I'd like the opposition to have a real go at her, and they might give themselves a real good chance.
Yeah, she can always beat herself, Simon, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she can be a bit flaky on occasion, can't she? I mean, obviously she is the woman to beat, but you know she could blow up. So I'll be with Azarenka.
Yeah, it's interesting. Azarenka is the top seed. Serena Williams only seeded 4, but she is around about even money to win the US Open. Well, that's the tennis, and that's all from us on the Punter for this time. Goodbye.